Good evening and welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm your host, Joshua Solomon, and with me as always is the Honorable J.P. Marzullo. How are you doing, J.P.?
I'm good.
Yeah?
I'm starting to feel like I should be keeping Biden's schedule. You know, like I go to bed by 10, so I'm up a little bit longer than he
Go to
is.
bed early? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
You last more than 6 hours a day? 'Cause
Oh, absolutely.
My understanding is he can't.
No, it's just I've been really interested in the convention, and it's been great.
Yeah, I've been up to midnight every night watching the convention.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
As usual, we are sponsored by Wilson Hill Pistol Club, wilsonhillpistol.org. You can see it on the bottom of your screen if you're watching online. The oldest sports shooting club in New Hampshire, 1732 Lakeshore Road, Manchester, New Hampshire. Wednesday nights, the first Wednesday night of every month at 7 p.m. right after the show. Man, I'm horrible. First Wednesday of every month, 7 p.m. is open membership meeting. We do not have a waiting list. You're welcome to attend. Tonight, our guest, an old friend of mine, an old friend of JP's, and should be a familiar voice in New Hampshire, Jeff Chidester. How you doing, Jeff?
Good, guys. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, so my understanding is something happened. Is there some news going on this week?
A lot of news. I mean, this heat wave is just horrendous. Isn't it?
Yeah,
and then something happened on Saturday. I think that, and moved us in a different direction. Yeah.
Exactly. This is one of those events where we remember where we were when we heard it for the rest of our lives, right? Myself, I think I was 8 years old when Reagan was shot.
Oh, here we go.
I was.
You do this to me every time.
How old were you, JP?
I was probably in my 20s then.
Well, wait a minute, I was in my 20s, so.
But this
come on, Jeff, don't call me out on this.
This is an event that, unlike any other in American history, for a large majority of the country, they don't remember the last time someone took a shot at a president or a presidential candidate.
No, and iconic too, and you look at the photo's already been identified as one of those historical photos that 40, 50 years from now, it'll be one that you see projected as a reference point for a very important event.
Yeah.
And it was interesting, I read the story about the photographer who took that photo, and he was actually moving in to position because he knew the agents were going to have to start moving and fire and panic and everything like that. So it just amazes me how photographers have that mindset to think about that. Yeah. And he just kept clicking away.
Yeah, is he the same one that got the bullet, path of the bullet?
Yeah,
he's the same guy.
It might be the
right?
same guy. Actually, let's go to Trump image number 1. Oh, okay. We'll get that up in just a second. And so here it is. So this is that image.
Yeah.
And I think everybody loves this image. You got the American flag in the background. When I first saw this, I actually thought that flag was photoshopped in there, because it's too perfect, right? He's pumping his fist, but it's hanging from the cranes on either side. But that's not my favorite photo.
No, there's one from a different angle. It's interesting too if you look at what's going on too, that some in the media chose to either crop or remove the flag.
Yeah.
So, and that's not a conspiracy. It's just, and they said it was editor's choice for whatever reason they felt that was the reason why they did it. But the New York Times originally did the cropped photo. Shifted the screen over a little bit without a sense of the flag.
So let's go through the rest of the Trump series.
Fist up and people.
Let's go through the rest of the series and how we got here. Because I got some things to say about each of these. This is that other one we were talking about. So this is obviously, we don't know, is this a bullet that completely missed him because there were several
shots too,
or is this the one that got his ear and he's about to swipe his ear, right? We don't know, but it's an amazing photo.
Right.
And then this one here, to me is one of the most powerful photos I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It almost brings tears to your eye. This man is on the ground.
Yeah.
He's been tackled by his security team, and he's looking at the ground. He's holding himself. He's watching a pool of blood form on the stage in front of his own eyes. It's his own blood. And what has he got to be thinking? was it just my ear? Is it
Right.
worse? I mean, we're talking milliseconds after it happened. Is it worse than I think it is? Is this the end? And what happens next? What do I do? What do I say?
That's what
and
happens
here
next.
he is. He
Right.
comes up, and he's not just fighting for his life. He's fighting against the
Yeah.
Secret Service
Yeah, he
agents.
is.
He's like, I need to show the world that I'm still here.
Yeah,
This
and-
one is my favorite picture.
And he also wanted to come. He wanted to finish speaking or start. You know, he started. Now he wanted to finish speaking.
Well, it was interesting because you point that out, and it is an iconic moment. But there was I forget the gentleman's name. He's a professor, and he wrote for the Atlantic on Tuesday, and he was talking about the picture. And the first thing they feel they need to do this is not a Trump fan, never supported him, is frightful of what he perceives the election the results will be, but he went on to say that in that moment he never had a greater pride and nationalism for his country, that he saw strength. And in that moment, he felt that he transferred what those in MAGA country believed. That he understood, he had the raw emotion that he felt that many of them who had been with Trump in the beginning. I thought that was, a very compassionate thing for him to say, to come to that realization, and pretty brave because he's in the academic world too.
Sure.
So, but yeah, those are wonderful pictures.
You know, Harold Ford is he's on Fox. He's a Democrat, former congressman. He said he was never more proud to be an American.
Yeah.
You know, for what he saw, that he showed strength. I mean, that was incredible.
Yeah,
It's
that
just-
was. I like I said, I see that picture of him on the ground, and then him just
immediately,
literally coming out of this womb of Secret Service agents, fist first.
Yeah.
Right. He's being reborn.
Yeah.
Right. And we know that some of that is true because he's already come out and said, he said, I had a humdinger of a speech written for Thursday, and I've redone it, and we've got this new movement for unity. And I think it's going to be a great speech, whatever happens tomorrow night. But I do want to ask the president, don't throw the humdinger away, because I got a feeling you're still going to need it.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I think that we were all shocked initially by what happened, right? And then when he did what he did,
I thought it was a joke. I thought somebody was messing with me. I had to turn the TV on and see it for myself.
Yeah. So I have some thoughts on they kind of tone it down. Biden came on and said we're going to lower the heat.
Yeah.
2 days later, they raised the heat again, and it's kind of like, to me, I'll make this simple analogy if you like baseball, right? So if a pitcher throws at a Yankee's head and hits him, and then goes back out to the Yankees are through, he goes back out to the thing, they'll throw both guys out, or they'll throw the pitcher out even though he didn't throw at the next batter. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the feeling I got was, okay, so they threw, this happened, and now the Democrats are going to say, now let's take it easy, that's not going to happen. It's sadly that it's not going to happen, because this is a great opportunity, and I think Trump will take that advantage of that, really. When I don't know how you felt when he walked in, but the first time that night, you could see in his face.
He was close to tears.
Yeah.
Lee Greenwood was singing.
Yeah.
I was messaging my family and my much younger sister. I was an only child till I was 15. She's like, Lee Greenwood singing live? I said, well, he's been singing at the RNC since the 80s. Like, he's a regular there.
Yeah.
But as Trump coming out, I mean, it was a powerful moment.
Yep. So, Jeff, you've had some experience in your past history with military and stuff in this. Why don't you kind of give us an inside view of what the Secret Service didn't do or did do, or what they're supposed to do?
Well, I think one of the things, and we've all worn many hats in our lives. I think that's the unique thing, especially in New Hampshire. You find a lot of people who've done a lot of different things. So when I was in the Army, I was actually part of a protective service deployment group. And so, certainly not the Secret Service, but our job was to guard dignitaries, the ambassadors in Europe, the NATO command staff, and their families. And so that's the thing. When I went to the TV and I started looking, the first thing I was looking at is, how did this happen? Because when you think about all the planning that you put in place to kind of work through these situations, the first thing is what they call the inner circle. The inner circle would be the Secret Service or the most important detachment group there. And they control that, and those are the people who are ready for the vehicles, have the direct communication with the sniper teams, have the direct communication with the exit vehicles, and any other what they call rapid deployment. And then the next one is what they call the secondary outer group. So that's either going to be your state police, your higher local police elements. It could include also other federal delegations. So once again, what they're doing is they're in the crowds, but they're going to close the circle to protect the retreat, is what they're going to do. And then the last circle that we talk about is one that I've also participated in when I was a police officer in Dover, is the local people. And they do the standard looking around for vehicles that are suspicious, covering, because that's going to be the delay of the actual attack. It's going to take them a while to get into those other two circles. And so that's what I was looking at. I was like, this shot clearly came from a very close location. How did any one of these circles get penetrated? And the fascinating thing is that when you think about each one of those little circles, what we're now hearing from the Secret Service and the local police departments, the Bakerfield Police Department only had 12 people. So they would be the primary in that outer circle. How do you do that with 12 people? You couldn't.
Right.
And then they're all saying that no one communicates with anybody. Now, when the Bushes used to come to New Hampshire all the time because of Kennebunk, we coordinated quite successfully. Like you're on the same comm links in all three of those rings. You have
that's 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like the technology and the communication has got to be better now.
Yeah. We certainly didn't use the big phones. But we had regular radios, but the federal government provided the radios for those detachments at each one of those layered rings. And the other thing is that we had a liaison from the federal agencies. We had an FBI liaison and a Secret Service liaison that worked directly with us. And you had at least 2 meetings where all 3 ring participants were there. So, and that's standard operating procedure, had been standard operating procedure, and to the best of my knowledge, certainly was standard operating procedure all the way through the Bush years. And so to see such a collapse of protocol to the point where we're now finding out even more, right?
Yeah.
That he had a rangefinder, that there had been notifications upwards of 5 minutes before he even got down into his position to shoot, is baffling to me. It's just baffling.
It is. Never mind all of that, but the fact that he was in plain view. If we look at, let's look at the shooter series, right? This might lead us to a different topic.
Yeah.
But this is taken by a person in the crowd.
With a cell phone.
That is clearly someone who is looking down a scope.
Yep.
Right. If we go to the next one, I think it's a zoomed out version of this. Right. It is in clear sight of folks who are just standing there in the crowd, and we've seen videos where hey, there he is. He's right there. He's right there.
Yeah.
And why do we have a picture of him before he why isn't this person dead?
Right. I mean, because they talk about that building being part of a staging area too. So once again, when you bring in those inner circles, they'll each go to a unique staging area in preparation. That staging area, as comical as this may sound, was for the local special response teams.
I don't understand that.
Oh my God.
I don't know if I remember what shooter 3 and 4 look like. Shooter 3.
Yeah.
This is. I put this one up here as an example of the perspective. We've got this guy in the hat in the middle. You can't see it because our logo's in the way, but it's not important. He's carrying a beer.
There you go.
He's just casually. No, this is after the shooter's been shot.
Yeah.
But this is how close he was in plain view. And in the next one, I think he's. This is the one. This is a screen grab from a BlackRock commercial. Did you guys know about that?
Yeah.
The shooter
is in it.
Is in a BlackRock commercial. If that's not
Red flag.
what's the anyway.
Look at you,
if that's not, I don't know. I'm forgetting my words.
It's okay, Joe.
If that's not conspiracy theory material, then I don't know what is. All right.
Well, they've already started, right?
All right. So, but anyway, I put those pictures up there as a perspective. Like that is too close.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about it before. I think all of us are shooters, right?
Yeah.
150 yards is a nothing shot.
Piece of cake.
Yeah. And he tried out for a shooting team. He barely not made it, but he was proficient enough to be constantly practicing on targets.
Yeah.
Not just a Johnny come lately to shooting.
But we got a 26-minute period of time where someone saw him with a rangefinder leave and come back with a backpack.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of excuses. All right. There was excuse number one is we don't want to take the shot and find out that it was just a telescope and he was just watching the. Right, so that was number one. Right?
How about the degree of the roof?
And the other one was
right.
So I got 3 pictures that are slopey pictures.
Roofs.
So let's go to slopey number 1.
Yeah.
All right, so that's slope. I mean, you can see the dead shooter, but you can see how shallow that slope is.
Yeah.
So that's. And we can get rid of that by let's stay on this one for just a minute.
Yeah, look at that slope.
This one is telling, right? This is a bigger slope. We didn't have any problem putting 2 snipers on a big slope.
Right.
Never mind that. Look at that scope. That is a single focal scope. That is about a $2,000 scope. You cannot tell me that they were looking through that scope and couldn't figure out whether the difference between a telescope and a firearm.
Correct.
That scope there is an expensive scope. Like I said, a $2,000-$3,000 scope. You look through that scope and you can see the guy's nose hairs.
Right, and you can't see the spotter, but the spotter has stated, or didn't state, but part of the initial reports, that he had been looking around and noticed something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So let's look at how dangerous the slope is on Slopey 3. Let's see if we can. This is how dangerous these slopes can be. There's.
well, you're gonna get yourself in trouble.
That's probably the cow. That's probably the cow that jumped over the moon, right?
Yeah,
It's a cow that can manage
Too
those
soon.
slopes better than a Secret Service agent, according to Miss Cheadle. So I'm sorry about that. I had to inject a little bit of humor.
That was good.
That was really good.
We'll all be in trouble.
Anyway, so these excuses they don't fly. They don't fly with anyone who's thinking even for a second.
No, and we have they ask us to be cautious. They ask us to wait for more information. The problem is that we live in a world of instant information, and you brought up a really good point. There are thousands of videos from all different angles. We've seen some of them. They're trying to collect as many as we can. And you know many of these people who are involved in political activities, they're actually kind of frightened to post anything up on social media. Mm-hmm. They believe that their government is such that there could be repercussions for them.
Yep.
And so we don't know where all these other videos are. But this would be one of those incidents, especially as you mentioned, like when we go back to the Reagan incident where we only had one camera at that point, that the overwhelming evidence so far is clearly indicating that there was such a lapse of security that it was either mental deficiency on the part of an administration or the conspiracy theories, right?
In the conspiracy theories, they're starting to fall in line here, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got the why was this such an easy target? Why was it such an easy location that should have been within? 150 yards shouldn't be the outer circle.
No.
It might be the middle circle, but really.
Right. Well, typically, that's part of the inner circle. Typically, you would occupy that, so they would have had a contingent, not just one, but because of its strategic value and part of being part of the inner circle, they would have had a deployment on there, either a second counter sniper unit or a standing unit watching the crowd, because that would have been an ideal location for the above
that
crowd
would have been
watching.
an ideal location for a counter sniper for what would have been a real sniper shot
Correct.
from 500 or 600 yards away.
But I didn't work at Pepsi, so I don't get to be in charge of Secret Service.
So
And I don't
we
like
also
Pepsi.
have reports that the guys on the roof that we saw with the really cool scopes.
Oh, those are.
I want one of those.
Yeah.
But we have indication that they were told not to shoot until you were shot at, until they took a shot. That goes against every
Everything.
training that I've ever done in hostile situations. Is every training that a police officer will not allow you to pull the trigger first before a police officer shoots you. If you've got a weapon in your hand, you don't get to shoot first if a police officer or a law enforcement agency or a sniper can see that weapon.
No.
You don't get to shoot first. Why would you tell someone to? So that's another one. We got Black Rock, we got shooting first, we got slopes that are too difficult for snipers, and we have this, a lot of people don't know, Jill Biden was just a few towns over.
Right.
And there's some speculation that Secret Service resources were diverted to them instead.
Right.
There's so many reasons why the conspiracy theories are going to start flying. And in our recent experience, some of them are going to end up being true.
Right. There's always a little bit of truth in the conspiracy theory, especially the ones I've seen shortly right now, that, the dissatisfaction from the sniper team. But they can't speak publicly. But the fact that Congress has intervened early, not that I'm a faithful observer of Congress having a bunch of hearings, because I think they do too many of those. I think Johnson handled it pretty well. You almost immediately have to look at a Warren type of commission early, because all these agencies are not going to talk to each other. All the other investigative elements are either loyal to an administration or don't have the authority in this situation. So Congress gets the blessing of being able to pull everyone together and look at a collective understanding of the evidence.
And one more conspiracy. There's a file called FBI. This is one that's really blowing my mind. So this is a picture of the FBI cleaning the roof. This tells me that the FBI, the same organization that certified the phony laptop, the Hunter's laptop, right? This same organization that raided Mar-a-Lago is now washing away any evidence that any independent agency can go up there to find fingerprints and smudges and. Right, they're just washing it all away. They don't want anyone else involved in the investigation.
Yeah, it was probably part of COVID protocols.
It's so easy to become a conspiracy theorist.
It is, and that's the sad part of our country, is that when we're in this sense of such tension, and and I did say, somebody asked me almost immediately after this incident happened, we're lucky that he didn't die, and I was like, you have no idea how lucky we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
That the very next day we would have been in a crisis situation in every major city beyond anything we've ever seen. I don't care what riots you want to use as an example, because of the fact that so many people felt that the government had been persecuting him improperly and illegally and certainly against the Constitution. So they were already at heightened concerns about that. This would have been the final straw of a country that is really very fragile. Yeah,
what's interesting to me is there were no people turning over cars or starting fires or the control that the Republican Party
nearly
had.
as violent as the media wants you to think they are.
Yeah, I think that was fantastic that there was nothing going on after that, because it certainly could have.
Yeah,
it would have been easy. Tonight's.
So I want to know one thing, though. This is more of a going towards a conspiracy theory. We got a 20-year-old kid who lived an hour away, who showed up with a rangefinder and a rifle with a scope and
his car with all kinds of explosives in it.
How did he know that roof wasn't going to be secure? Right? Most of us aren't. When there's a rally that's scheduled, we know that a rally is scheduled. Correct. And we know that it's scheduled in a particular area, but we don't necessarily see the setup, right? He lived an hour away. Was he watching them set up and said, "Oh, they're not doing anything over there"? How did he know? What gave him the idea that that was a safe place to set up? Because in any thinking mind, any real sniper's mind, anyone who would take the Lee Harvey Oswald situation, he set himself up in a position that he was familiar with.
But his lunch.
Right?
Yeah, his lunch.
Right? At least that's what we're told by the Warren Commission.
Yeah.
But the point is, he was in a familiar location.
Yeah.
This was an unfamiliar location to this person, but he was able to just walk in and say, "Hey, that's unprotected. I can just go up there and do whatever."
Well, and he had to bring a ladder too. That's the other thing.
Well, they're changing that story too. Now the story is he jumped and used an air conditioner and jumped up, and so the story's changing.
Yeah.
Yep.
They started out with a 20-foot ladder, then they said 5-foot ladder. And then now they're saying air conditioner.
Right.
But that was my next question: is how did he figure out that was an unprotected location?
Well, and you look at him too, like, and I'm not going to sit here and try to make any excuses, but he's unsuspecting, right? He's a pretty simple-looking kid, enough so that people would be disarmed about somewhat of an innocent appearance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, once again, this is where I go back to that kind of that circle of protection. The first thing they tell you is that that's exactly what you should be looking at. If somebody is in a location where they shouldn't be, and they seem reluctant to have an interaction with you in contact, that's what you need to worry about. So I think that we are going to get some of that, especially from the local police departments, because look, this isn't what they're technically trained for. There are going to be so many questions, and no one's going to be happy with any of the answers. But I do believe that there will be some criminal liability labeled, potential criminal liability for some of the members of the administrative part of the leadership team for these Secret Service teams, because there were 4 active teams in the state of Pennsylvania that day for various reasons. So.
I don't imagine where that's going to go. I mean, it took a very long time in Texas for the Uvalde police to resign or be fired, and now they're actually being held responsible.
Well, look at the cover-up down in Tennessee too.
Right.
The Tennessee shooting.
It takes a long time.
Yeah.
Well, the Nashville shooter.
The Nashville shooter.
We're never going to find out what this guy's.
Well, we're being told, and some of the police officers are actually leaking that document, but we're being told that, that evidence isn't going to be presented to us. And so, this is a time for Congress to act on a bigger scale, that these type of incidents warrant transparency, because transparency is the only way that we really get to the fact. It's all, and you've seen these before. It's always some R&D guy who works for a software company who's going through the documents, and this isn't adding up.
It's not lining
and
up.
And they bring it, and everyone's shocked 5 years later, like, I didn't see that.
Right. Right.
Yep.
So.
Yep. No, whistleblowers need to be protected, especially in this type of situation.
Oh yeah.
So. So when I was watching, before we knew kind of anything, the fake news was already starting. The fake news was instantaneous. So the first thing I heard, so I try to stay away from the fake news. I was watching Newsmax.
Right.
And Newsmax had, I think, 1 camera and 1 person. They didn't have a huge contingent there. So they get a lot of their up to the minute, breaking news stuff from the AP.
Right.
And so Newsmax reported almost immediately from the AP that Trump wasn't hit by a bullet. They said that Trump was hit by the shattered fragments of the teleprompter.
Right.
That's what the AP first reported. And while they were still reporting that as fact, I was watching the screen, I was taking screenshots. So let's take a look at the fake news images. So we'll go to fake news number 1. I was looking at the screenshots.
Right.
Right. They're still on the ground behind the podium. You can see both of the teleprompters are fully intact.
Right. And the teleprompters are bulletproof. The teleprompters can take a 50 caliber at a high capacity 50 caliber.
And
so
the next image shows even clearer. So
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and that's that photographer I was telling you about. he was reporting back to AP because he was literally one of the only people they had, and he was going, "No, they're not shattered." And he had to take a picture
Right,
then to show them that and they sent him the picture. Yeah,
so that was within seconds. The AP was like, "Oh no, we don't want to say it's an assassination." And so if we continue down the fake news list, Trump removed from stage by Secret Service after loud noises startles the former president.
Yeah.
That's USA Today. Let's go to the next one. I mean, these are absurd. Secret Service rushes Trump off stage after he falls.
Right.
Oh my Lord!
And that's CNN,
I didn't see that,
right?
yeah.
Oh, you didn't see any of these?
No, I didn't see that.
I think there's like one or two more. Donald Trump saved after what sounded like gunshots.
Sure.
I don't know. It's not even worth going through the rest, right? Trump escorted away after loud noises.
It's funny. You said it too.
They were desperate for this not to be an assassination attempt.
Yeah, they were already reeling from the bad. They knew what an assassination attempt was going to be like. I was watching News Nation, and the thing with News Nation is that they had 2 cameras there, and they had because they have a relationship with the Hill. They had 5 Hill reporters for different, some covering Congress, some covering the president. Their reporting was great. Like, they were hitting the headlines just right. It was gunfire. We've confirmed it's gunfire. This is what we're doing. The president is wounded. We're not sure how the extent of the wound, but he clearly is wounded. And that was within that first 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And they stayed on the rest of the day because the fact that they had a relationship with all these reporters, they were getting, they got the first unnamed Secret Service source telling us exactly what was going on. So I thought they did a good job, and I was going back at Newsmax. I was, of course, because of what I do for a living now, I have to go to all the media sources just out of frustration, and it was very frustrating to flip over to CNN and MSNBC. God, they literally didn't have anything for the longest time. I think at that time they were rerunning West Wing or something. I don't know, but they weren't ready.
So MSNBC, you bring that up. I mean, they pulled Morning Joe off the air Monday morning.
Yeah,
right?
That was interesting.
This is probably one of the most liberal Trump derangement syndrome shows that exists, right? And he has something like 20 guests every morning. And I can just imagine this guy watching all of this unfold Saturday and Sunday and thinking, Monday morning it's my turn to shine. And they said, no, we think you and your guests are gonna be stupid.
Right.
And I can just imagine the fit he was throwing. And then on Tuesday morning when they put him back on.
Oh, yeah.
The instant they put him back on, they clowned themselves almost instantaneously, right? One of his guests said, well, this is a MAGA shooter, and he was probably upset that Trump wasn't conservative enough.
Yeah,
they are desperate. They are desperate, but they clown themselves any chance they get, and that's MSNBC. I mean,
Well, they said that he was a MAGA person, right?
Yeah.
But what they didn't say is that they said he was a registered Republican, but they didn't say that he donated a small amount of money to a very active Democratic group.
Yeah.
And they didn't say that.
It's the weakest form of media, and it's the weakest form of journalism to go to these low-hanging fruit excuses because, to think of, because none of them, just like in the economy, none of them have classically trained economists working for them. None of them have classically trained criminologists working for them either. They will go and find them, in the professorships. But there used to be a time, I can remember ABC used to have a person who handled each one of those.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem. So they go to the low-hanging fruit, because that's what they all check first. Mm-hmm. They go, what's the party affiliation, what's the social media, and they think that is the indicator of a motive, and it's not.
It's not. So
No.
this person, it's not even worth saying his name. He was 20 years old. He registered to vote when he was 18.
Correct.
And all intents and purposes, it looks as though he comes from conservative parents. They're gun owners, they're hunters and whatnot. He's never voted in a presidential election because he was never old enough.
The Senate one, yeah.
And that low-hanging fruit that he's a registered Republican, I can see that. I can see him going in with his father.
Yeah.
Just after his 18th birthday, he's going to vote in a local election, and Dad says, I'm registering Republican, and he may have different views. He's, well, I'll just register however my dad registers, however my parents register.
Yep.
And for a 20-year-old, right? We've talked about this before with our mentally ill, our not mentally ill, we've talked about mental illness. We've talked about mental illness on this show before. The human brain, the adolescent brain, is not mature until 26 or 27, male or female. So at the age of 18 or 19, whatever it is that he registered, he's not fully there yet. And he still wasn't, at this point. So when I see that he's registered Republican, but he donates to Democrat causes, liberal causes, it's a very easy conclusion to come to the conclusion I just made.
Yeah.
Right? He registered, as a group event with his family and did what his father wanted him to do, but secretly he's not like that, right? So that is the easy conclusion. That's the low-hanging fruit for me.
Well, he didn't know who he was.
Right.
And I think, you find this often when you have these people, especially if they've been bullied and stuff like that, that loner syndrome is they really don't know who they are. They don't really have a purpose or an identity. And that's what law enforcement will drill into more.
Mm-hmm.
What I don't understand is they said there's nothing on his laptop that would indicate that he might do this. I'm not too
There's
sure
nothing
about
on
that.
Hunter's laptop either. So
Exactly. It's the same guys, right?
Hunter's probably on that laptop, and that's why they won't say anything.
Right.
So,
Yeah, he had to have some social, things on there.
it's the phone. They're not talking about the phone.
That's the other thing that's interesting is
interesting.
so Discord took down his profile, but no one's ever mentioned. We haven't found Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat.
No.
We haven't found these profiles of this person. It's almost like it was deliberately erased. Like that's another piece to the conspiracy theories. Like, what 20-year-old in today's day and age doesn't have an electronic footprint?
Right.
Because you're 80, I'm 50. We have electronic footprints, right?
Absolutely.
And these things did not exist until I was 30 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
So what 20-year-old doesn't have that footprint, and why aren't we being told about it?
Well, but once again, the omnipresence of these tech companies who take Facebook, every one of them, the ability to not only gather this, stop it from projecting outward is completely something that many of us have been complaining about, and the fact that they can keep it away from the government too, or they can clean it and elevate it in a way they want to elevate it. So once again, it's just. This investigation is going to be it's going to be brutal, and it's going to be interesting. If anyone missteps, it's not going to be easy to hide this one.
Yeah,
it's just
and I've thought about how this investigation should unfold and how it will unfold. We're still 4 months away from the election.
Yeah.
Yep.
16 months.
I would venture that this business of unity and we're gonna put our best people on it. They're hoping that fades. They're hoping that we stop paying attention.
Yeah.
And they're hoping that they can win the election and continue on, as normal, and they're going to be in control of every government agency. If we can get past these 4 months and keep the heat on with this investigation and with all of the other issues that are important to us as conservatives, if we can get through these 4 months and he does win the election, immediately, he is supposed to start getting daily briefings, the national security briefings.
Oh, yeah.
And he's supposed to be hooked back into Washington. And at that point, they're really going to panic because he's
Right.
he's going to be involved in those discussions, and he's going to say, why am I not hearing about this? Why is this at this particular point? And there's just going to be this between November and January 20th, this huge I don't know, cover up, CYA. I mean, I think
Right. That's
I
why
think
he
they're
needs
starting to
to-
get
yeah.
that ball rolling right now. But because he's not presidential elect yet, he doesn't have the in, right? But on November 7th or whatever day
Everything
after,
starts at that point.
he's going to be in, and we're gonna see some really.
Oh yeah,
Things are going to get worse before they get better. I firmly
Right.
believe that. I think there's definite opportunity or reason to believe that there may be copycats. There may be. I mean, these things. Unfortunately, these
They
things
do
will-
pop up.
They do pop up.
Well, I clearly think that, especially if Trump does win, I think you're going to look at someone like a Vivek Ramaswamy being placed in charge of something like this.
Did you guys see his speech?
Yeah,
the other
it
night?
was great.
He was on
fantastic.
fire.
He's
wasn't
always
he?
on fire. He did so well in New Hampshire, and he's been very positive throughout this whole process. He's been a naturally supportive ally of President Trump for all the right reasons. And you know, once again, he didn't come casually to him. There's key things he saw in him in his leadership style. But you know, once again, that's the type of person, because there's two reasons why. His analytical ability is very strong. His
Yes.
leadership ability is very strong, and he wants to cut so much in the federal government, the bureaucracy anyway, that he could be doing it at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you know why you're fired? That.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
He's
And show him the cow video. He goes, "Look, cow, it wasn't that bad." So,
oh
Cow video, I love it.
yeah.
So all the speakers were great. I
Yeah,
was
they
really
have been good.
impressed with all of them, and I wasn't sure how Dr. Carson was going to do after following the person he had to follow. I mean, because he's very soft-spoken, but
Yeah.
he did a great job, I thought.
Yeah,
He said they've tried everything with him, and they've even tried to assassinate him. And look, he's over there right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I thought that
They
was
tried to
that was
stonewall
good.
him.
Yeah.
They tried to embarrass him. They tried to get the entire national intelligence community
Against him,
to
yeah.
align against him. They've tried to prosecute him. They've impeached him. They're trying to put him in jail. And now they've shot. He's literally taken a bullet to the
Correct.
head, and you know what? He's still there, and I think that speaks to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like in our lifetimes, we've seen it over and over and over again. As soon as there's any bit of pressure, any political pressure, any media pressure, people resign
Yeah.
on both sides. And they resign because they don't want to put themselves through that. They don't want to put their families through that.
Yeah.
All the scrutiny, all of the images and the imagery. This is the only person in my lifetime who I've seen take this much, up to and including a bullet,
Yeah.
and is not backing down. I wasn't always a Trumper, right?
Nor
I was
was I.
never a never
Yep.
Trumper.
right.
But in his first, I'm like, no, I don't know, right? Rubio was running, Cruz was running. There were a lot of good, proven track record conservatives that were running. But when he won the primary, like, okay, he's saying all the right things.
Right.
And then when he was elected, he didn't just become another politician. This is the only president in my lifetime who had a list of campaign promises, and during his term,
Check them off.
Yeah.
he went right down the list, and if he didn't accomplish it, he at least attempted to accomplish it. If
Right.
there was a campaign promise that he didn't keep, it wasn't because he didn't keep it. It was because he couldn't keep it
Yep.
due to other factors,
Right.
due to Congress, due to outside influences. He tried to make good on everything he ever said, and that's what made me a Trumper, is because there are some things I don't agree with him. He's a little soft on certain issues like abortion. He's even soft on some Second Amendment issues, which are huge for this show. But when he says that he stands here, he hasn't moved since the day he said it the first time.
Right.
No flip-flop.
Well, I think that's the thing is and certainly I'm in the same boat as you. As a traditional conservative, you look at certain things. But Ronald Reagan used to say all the time is that you vote for the most conservative candidate you have in front of you because at least they're with you some of the time.
Right, exactly.
Then you don't have to fight all the time. You only have to fight some of the time.
Right.
And I think that's a very important thing for certainly Republicans to think about. I don't think there is truly any sane never Trumper at this moment, simply because of what we've seen over these last 2 weeks. Nikki Haley is a classic example. She came to the absolute conclusion, even before this gunshot, that after watching Joe Biden, the greatest danger to democracy and freedom and a constitutional republic is this guy. He is completely unconscious, which means a puppet regime would have to run the government. And that is everything we stand
it's
against.
Not would have to.
They're doing it now.
Is.
Yeah, Joe Biden
is.
Yeah.
Right?
She's got the nuclear codes that are vogue shooting, you know.
Yeah, Jill has it. She's reaching in his pocket, and she's got them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and the other thing we have to keep in mind, he didn't have to do this at all. He's made fortune in business. Yeah. He made a fortune on TV. He doesn't need to be
He's
doing
not
this.
bribable. In fact, he never took a paycheck.
Right.
As the elected president of the United States, every single pay, the presidents get paid quarterly.
Right.
And he took every paycheck and donated it to a different charity every single quarter. He didn't take a penny.
Well, I'm glad that they're trying to make him human, because we know he's human, but their attack is always to put him out there that he's very radical, he's going to destroy democracy. I mean, I can't understand why they continue to do that. And the key issues we both know are going to be issues that they did the last time.
Well, right, but the difficulty, and when you start thinking about the campaign, it's the two eyes right out of the gate. We know this both in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party and independents are focused on the two eyes, inflation and immigration. Those are key issues. That's the first time we've had such a unifying message, not just for the Republican Party, but in American citizenry are concerned about those two issues. If you look on down the line, too, once again, safety feeds into the immigration issue, right?
Sure.
That's where suburban women are right now. They see a J.D. Vance as a security candidate, so there's a benefit there. And so it's not going to be that hard to get suburban voters. Marquette had their study out this morning that basically said that the voter enthusiasm is high on the Republicans, higher than it's been in 30 years.
Wow.
So when you look at that, and then we had the AARP report that came out at 3 today that said 2/3 of Democrats polled do not want Joe Biden. So you have high enthusiasm directed towards a Republican candidate. Then you have 2/3 of a political base, i.e. the Democrats, the donkeys, or jackasses. I forget which name they do that.
I have my own preference, but we'll save it.
Are dissatisfied. You end up with the good probability, as John King said last night on CNN, of 330 electoral votes.
Yep.
I mean, he's hitting that map last night and visually moving things blue to red. And I knew right then and there the Democrat leadership had dropped their probably their drawers too, but their jaws, because they don't know how to handle this. They're going to take Project 2025 and think that's the albatross you're going to run. And I had a debate with somebody who said, "Well, the Project 2025 is Mein Kampf," and I said, "So you read it?" Because I've read
900 pages.
I've read it. It's works they've done in the past. There's nothing in there they haven't said before. And I said, I've read that, and I've read Mein Kampf, and this ain't no Mein Kampf.
All right? This is an organization of ideas, and
that's what think tanks do.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what they get paid for. They don't wake up in the morning and say, "Hey, should we not write a paper?" No, we got to write a paper.
So we have about 5 minutes left.
Now, I was just going to ask Jeff. We talked a little bit about this morning about how will the VP affect the election, because a lot of the experts have said it won't make any difference. I disagree with that.
They have said it. So that was exactly what I wanted to talk about.
Go ahead.
We got J.D. Vance. We got that announcement on Monday. I think a lot of conservatives like that. And as we were talking about a few minutes ago, J.D. used to be a never Trumper.
Yeah, quite vocal.
So how do we think this is going to work out?
Well, I think, you have to look at one, the number one trending movie right now on Netflix was Hillbilly Elegy.
Yep.
And so it's a good story to go with, because he comes from a part of the country that my father's family comes, and big Rust Belt. We talked about it this morning on the radio show about that importance. And let's look at the other factors that we have to look at. He served in the Marines, was in Iraq. We haven't had a veteran on the ticket for frickin' ever. I had to go back because it wasn't Pence, Biden neither. We had to go back to Bush. He was a veteran as a president. We had to go back to that just to get that. The second thing is that he's in a biracial marriage. And nobody's
that's
talking
the
about
other
that.
thing. You can't touch this guy. When he dresses up.
The Democrats wish he was them.
When he dresses up in Indian garb, it's because his wife is Indian and Asian. It's not because he's Justin Trudeau and he's just playing dress up.
Right, but you take that.
Have you seen that?
Right.
I did.
And his respect for multiple religions. Then you take the third factor that he made his way through Yale and law school. He worked his way through this, coming from an impoverished community of Ohio and West Virginia, and moving his way through that after serving in the military, and then going into capital ventures and walking away not in a dissatisfaction of an ethical free market or capitalism, but of crony corruption within the leadership of these companies. So he's not dissatisfied with capitalism, he's dissatisfied with ethics. And then when he just ran a really brilliant campaign. They're going to try to touch him, but what I'm going to tell you right now, especially if his wife is out there on the campaign trail, it's going to bring women voters to the ticket simply because we picked the right person. Abortion isn't even in the top 10. And it's not going to be an issue this time. It's the kitchen table. It's inflation.
Right.
And it's immigration.
Yep. And the abortion thing, the Democrats are going to try and make that their platform because they got killed. Right. When the Supreme Court came down with their Dobbs decision,
and they are winning across the country on some of those.
As far as true conservatives are concerned, we won that battle because we put it back to the states. Right. We take this off the national stage and we put it back to the local the local governments. We won that battle, like you said. It's down the list now. It's not a national issue anymore.
No, it's on a couple ballots in a couple states. Florida's being one of them.
It's a state issue.
They're going to walk. For those who decide to walk, they're going to check off that, and they're going to check Trump. The indicators are already there. So even if it is an issue on a state, it's going to be something to think about as well.
All right. So there's one more thing I wanted to do. Is one more picture that I want to put up, and that is Corey. This is Corey Comparateur. I can't pronounce his name. This man gave his life for his family.
Yeah.
When all of that happened, he's a Republican. Was he a firefighter?
Firefighter.
Fire chief.
His natural instinct is protection.
Right. And another Marine.
And yes, exactly. And so we're talking about an assassination attempt on former President Trump. I don't want to lose sight that somebody actually was assassinated.
And President Trump hasn't lost sight on that either.
President Trump, within 2 days,
humility is insane.
He raised over $4 million for this man's family.
Yeah.
That was on Monday. The number on Monday was $4 million.
And
I don't know what it is now.
As well.
But it is incredible that the outpouring for this family.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to. I put all those other pictures up. I wanted to put that up.
Well, it was, yeah, I mean, it's very true. I liked the woman from New York who spoke.
Yeah.
It was so angry that, she's a minority and that when there were problems, the only person that called them was President Trump.
Yeah.
Because he has empathy.
He always has. When you look at the history, even before he decided to, I fault anyone who decides to run for politics. It's such a corrupt institution across the board, not him.
Right.
It's easy to get poisoned very quickly. But, once again, he's always had a very good heart. Many of the stories we don't hear from him.
Exactly.
And people who tell it don't give their name because they know he would be mad if he found out. He's always been generous. He has a deep respect. He gets it from working in his dad's company, actually having to work with the construction workers.
Yes.
He had to be on the crews every day. And we used to, even when he became a billionaire, he went down there and ate lunch with them.
Yeah. What did you think of the Teamster guy coming on?
I didn't like it. He doesn't need to be on there. He'll be the only speaker who will be both at the Democrat convention and the Republican convention.
Will be.
Has he accepted the Democrats?
Yeah. I think that was the first time that a Teamsters boss has ever spoken.
Right to work is a big issue for me.
Yeah.
He was right in the middle ground. He started out well, and he uttered that phrase "right to work" in that. And
He got
I think his
22
speech.
minutes.
I think his
Yeah.
speech went downhill from there. I listened to the whole thing, and
I did as well.
I wasn't here.
Yeah.
I wasn't all the way down here. I don't know if I was even in the middle. I was probably down in the bottom third.
I know why he did it, because his rank and file is with Trump, and his rank and file is
Exactly why he did
yelling
it.
in his ear, not whispering.
Right.
Yes.
And so he has to look neutral. Or
Yeah.
but the rank and file is with Trump.
Yeah. He certainly had a look on his face like he was trying to send a message directly to those people. There was a, I don't want to say it was an anger in his face, but there was a sternness in his face where he was a little bit uncomfortable in this audience.
We
So-
could see in my lifetime a non-Democratic aligned Teamster leader, one closer to the Republican Party.
Maybe.
I think it's possible.
Jeff, we're going to wrap up here, but
Sure.
we did introduce you, and we talked about your military service and your police service, but we didn't talk about what you're doing right now, and so if you can let the viewers know how they can hear you, contact you.
Yep.
and
Call
whatnot.
in.
So WFE radio, which is 99.9 and 1370 AM, right here in Manchester, based in Manchester, Manchester Radio Group. So I'm on from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. I'm the only morning news talk show that takes phone calls, so 603-669-1370. And so we let people talk. We had Grace Curley on this morning, who used to be with me at another station. So we have a really good time. We bring in all kinds of different guests. I have let the audience know, and they've known me from other radio stations, that I'm a traditional conservative, but I have no problem talking to anyone. I think that's the way we kind of come to a definitive understanding of who we are on our political journey as well. So I think you need to hear from both sides, and you figure out which one's the idiot. So.
One of them always is.
Well, we put the podcast, even if we're a couple weeks apart, if one person talks about an issue from one perspective and another, we put those podcasts close together.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'm disappointed is when we had the show on Saturday, we always had donuts.
Yes.
So we didn't get any, but we'll have to have you back on again.
No, and the donut shop I used to is no longer around. So the donut shop. So I used to be able to call them up and get them on the way into work.
And
So
didn't you have chefs on too? Because you.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
We're bringing the cooking segments back.
Are you?
Yep.
Okay, that's
All
awesome.
right. Well, when you have those cooking sessions, you send them our way afterwards.
Yeah. We also
We
sample
need guests
bourbon.
that bring food.
Sample bourbon.
We do bourbon. We're going to be sampling a tequila. In a
Okay,
couple
we're gonna put a priority on those guests.
Well, I'll let you know when that is. The guy's a Navy guy. He created a tequila to support veterans in crisis.
That's
A
awesome.
federal court, the Supreme Court just ruled that home distilleries are perfectly legal. So we did have a guest that we were trying to make it legal here in New Hampshire, but the Supreme Court just slapped down all of the rules. You can distill your own whiskey in your own bathtub now. Thank you, folks. We'll see you next week as usual, same time, same place.